Welcome to another episode of the WAN Manager Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan, and this is the show where we talk to networking experts about the data services that make business possible. So, you might be like about half of our WAN Manager survey respondents who have not adopted SD-WAN, or perhaps you're in the middle of a deployment and want to know what to look out for, or maybe you've already adopted SD-WAN and you're still kind of trying to figure out what to do with your MPLS links. Well, today, we're going to get some perspective on that might be useful for a lot of different people in different journeys from another case study episode, this time with Mark Williams, who is the Senior Manager of Global Networks at BorgWarner. Welcome, Mark. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Greg. Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here.
Excellent. So I thought just for I've talked to you many times in many different forums, but for the audience, maybe you could start out with a brief introduction of your background and what your role at BorgWarner is, as well as what BorgWarner does. Not a household name, I think, for most folks. So it'd be good to get a little background there. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start off a little bit about BorgWarner. So most people either know BorgWarner from the trophy that is presented from the Indianapolis 500. That is
Right.
the BorgWarner trophy handed out each year, and we embed the face of the Indy 500 winner onto that trophy. So a lot of people know us from the trophy, but here in America and across greater Europe, we're more widely known for our market in the automotive segment for providing turbochargers. So we provide turbochargers for commercial vehicles, and here in America, a big name is our EcoBoost and our partnership with Ford Motor Car Company that we made a lot of turbochargers, combustible turbochargers that we put in the car. But we have a lot larger portfolio than that. And with the onslaught of the electrical vehicle market, we have now did change in our product portfolio, and we make now some products that you might understand as an electric turbochargers. We make the wheel drive motors, so the motors that are going to drive your vehicles, and a lot of various other EV components, electric vehicle components that go inside your car, like heaters and chargers and things like that. So this is what BorgWarner does in automotive. We're a global company, and we have presence all around the world. So my role here is I have a global team of network engineers. My responsibilities go across networking, perimeter security, so all the components that we secure our perimeter with, and then as well as voice and mobility. So certainly all that exists in the same vertical, and we run almost all of that and in its entirety across our network. So I've got a great team. We do a follow the sun approach. We are very jointed from a single moving effort, and like I say, I've got a really good team in place to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That a lot of the folks we talk to are definitely a little bit more siloed than what you really touched on every aspect of networking. So that's good to hear that it's really integrated there at BorgWarner. That probably makes your job, while it's more complex and maybe more issues to handle, it might ultimately make it easier, I reckon, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, our focus is our customers, right? We consider ourselves the team that business enables each one of our plants. We've got more than 100 plants globally. And I'll have to say that my team has a personal touch with just about every single plant out there. They know us, we know them. And like I say, it's everything from where the wire plugs into the back of a computer all the way out to any type of cloud hosted application or service. So, we see it all the way through. We have a layer of LAN support management. We have a layer of WAN support and management. And like I said, those other components of voice and mobility all fit right in there together. So my team is very diverse. I don't try to silo anybody. We try to make experts a little bit of expert of everybody, so that we can share in the not only the support for the technology, but the support for delivering that technology to our customers globally. So yeah, it does. I'll say that we have a lot of fun with the tools and the functions that we're able to go have some fun with.
Absolutely. All right. Well, so let's get into that fun then. You, from what I understand, rolled out SD-WAN last year. So it's a fresh experience, right? And you're in that market right now.
Yeah.
So first, for the folks out there who are listening, and like I mentioned at the top, there are still quite a few, believe it or not, who have not really started down that road. Could you take us through kind of how you went about early in that stage, selecting a vendor, what features you wanted, that sort of thing?
Sure, sure. Starting back a couple of years, our journey was is we were very much hub and spoke. So, from a
Mm-hmm.
security perspective, we egressed all of our internet traffic out our data centers. We didn't have a lot of local egress. We used, different technologies to optimize those traffic loads for both engineering traffic. So our network is very busy with engineering design traffic and
Right. Mm-hmm.
and our business system traffic. So each one of our plants are consolidated into two ERP systems that are globally diverse, one in EMEA and one in North America. So as we started peering into the future, and I'm glad that we started peering into the future early,
Yeah.
we
Yes, indeed.
started we started to see the need coming forward for cloud adoption. And I try to think of it not so much as cloud adoption and the fact that we're moving everything to the cloud, but there are certain functions that were coming forward that we knew that if we didn't get started sooner than later, we were going to have some real roadblocks about supporting the business needs. So if you think about
Mm-hmm.
the things like Office 365, our workday systems, anything that was the simple cloud adoption, we had to be out in front of. And I know
Right.
that if we weren't out in front of them, we may have failed miserably on trying to get there under the pressure. So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, so we moved very rapidly in our quest, and we converted our network, our partner AT&T. I'm sure they're happy about me mentioning them, but our partner
Yeah,
who we
absolutely.
partnered with was AT&T, and they brought to us a very robust architecture with their Flexware product line. And
Mm.
that allowed us to virtualize our entire environment. So we pulled out our physical routers and we pulled out our physical firewalls and we replaced at
Mm.
every single site with an x86 appliance that ran both a virtual
Ah,
router and a
okay.
virtual firewall.
Mm-hmm.
So that allowed us to take our first, I'll say, our first step journey into local egress. And it was a huge hit.
And so, if I
Um,
could just break in there for a second and say, that is in our survey data, kind of the minority position going with an all vCPE kind of solution. What was the sort of thinking behind that, and working with your provider and figuring out which way you wanted to go?
um, for us, it was really simple. We wanted to make, we make auto parts, right? So we
Hmm.
don't staff all of our sites with network experts. So
Indeed, yeah.
we had to coordinate the activities to getting this solution deployed. So if you can think about what we were trying to do, we had a router in place, a physical router in place. We would have had to ship a physical firewall to these
Hmm.
sites. And then, in many instances, we would have had to ship a optimization box. So we were using
Right.
Riverbed at the time for network optimization.
Mm-hmm.
So now, when you start thinking about those three physical components, the wiring of such, the cabling of such, would be very complicated. So one of the primary reasons why we shipped this appliance is because we were able to consistently replicate our effort site by site by site without getting into any
Hmm.
major obstacles about where to plug what and how to plug what. So it was very easy to
Absolutely,
deploy.
right.
It was
So you could
very,
manage that deployment centrally rather than having to get somebody to every single site and that
yeah.
sort of thing.
And the second point about this, Greg, which I say was hugely beneficial for us, is that a site's need, maybe let's just say a site may just have a bare need of a 50 meg internet connection. So you could size the virtual firewall to the need of the local sized ISP. So why is
Hmm.
that important? Because it's all about cost, right? We've got to maintain and keep our cost perspective in check. And so as the company grew, or as the site may grow or expand, we are able to deploy a new sized firewall from a software perspective. So there wasn't boxing up the next level or next version of a physical hardware
Right. Right.
equipment sent to the site. It was literally tearing down the initial software defined firewall and then building in the next version of the firewall. I mean, it was
Hmm.
literally what I would say it was done on the fly. We could do this on the fly. It was very quick, very nimble, very agile. So that allowed us to be and deliver these solutions that fit the site correctly.
Absolutely, and I mean that's exactly the whole promise, right? Is the future proof aspect of it, right? That
Yeah,
it's not a
sure.
rip and replace situation then, and you can push whatever updates you need to go
Yeah,
without rethinking everything. So there you go. Yeah.
yeah. And I'll say the second most compelling part of our journey that was really providing a robust secondary failover solution. So
Mm-hmm.
we also used AT&T's Anira solution, and the benefit of this solution was that our prior to that we were building VPN tunnels back to our data centers. So when our primary connection would fail, we had an overlay that basically our configuration went over to that VPN tunnel that hubbed everything back to the data center. So if you can imagine, you fail over, now you've lost your any to any connectivity from an MPLS perspective, and you're hubbed on a VPN connection back to your data center and then go from there. When we implemented
Mm-hmm.
the Anira solution, it is not hubbed back to your data center. It actually punches a hole into the internet, and we are able to provide any connectivity from a VPN perspective back into our MPLS network. So we weren't relying on any
Mm-hmm.
specific hub to get back directly to that hub. Once we failed over and provided that any to any connectivity back into the was a virtual internet gateway, literally our sites were still on that grid for MPLS. And because we had went through and sized all of our MPLS connection or all of our internet connections correctly, I'll say that almost 95 to 98% of the time, a site would never have a clue if they're on their primary connection or their secondary connection. It was literally
Mm-hmm.
that quiet. A site typically would not lose a beat once they failed over to that secondary connection. And vice versa,
Right.
when their services got restored, it would flip back. And we were really we were
Right.
really just watching tickets, and we were watching the technology shake itself out. So those are some really those are a couple of the examples of the real benefits that we saw by moving to this type of network. And I consider this our hybrid
Mm-hmm.
SD-WAN network.
So that well, let me focus there specifically on the underlay. First, on something you already said, which was sort of right sizing your internet connections. First, are you still getting your DIA or did you go with broadband for that matter through AT&T? Is that something you've had to source yourselves?
Nope.
That's just all part of the bigger network package, right?
No. So what we did is we studied every single site, and when we went to every site, we always had our diverse hats on, right? So if we had that main MPLS delivered by the last mile, whoever it might be, through
Mm-hmm.
AT&T, we ensured that we had a diverse technology. So
Right.
if we could get it specifically from another provider for Ethernet under delivered, we would do that. In a lot of cases, we would go out to the local cable providers, so the Comcast and
Mm-hmm.
the Charters and the things like that.
MSOs, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, not only did we have diversity from an MPLS perspective, so we had an MPLS connection delivered on a x86 appliance running VNFs for our functionality. But if we lost all that, we knew that we had a diverse provider from an internet perspective, and we had a diverse another appliance from an era that we could
Mm.
survive in those different ways. So we made sure that when we looked at a site, in all cases possible, and I'll say that unless we were specifically in AT&T territory, we would go out and locally
Mm-hmm.
source that to each one
Right.
of our sites to get the best bang for the buck, to be honest with
Mm-hmm.
you.
And was that difficult? I mean, you have factories; they're not necessarily, a different situation than the last case study I had on. Was a staffing agency, and basically 100% of their sites are in central business district, multi-tenant office buildings.
Yeah.
You're dealing with factories. Were there greenfield development to get, say, a Comcast or something to pull something wires out to the facility?
Absolutely. And if you look at BorgWarner's footprint, or you look at really probably any automotive footprint, we're generally most the same. We
Mm-hmm.
build things on the edge of cornfields.
Right. Right.
We build them in office parks where there's not, typically low cost to operate, where you'll get, a good workforce that's affordable, and we're not building them in the metropolitan areas. We're, like I
Right.
say, we're building. I call it, we're building them on the edge of cornfields.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
in many cases, yeah, there was not that diversity down, or that even a good robust internet circuit down there. So, I'll say this much, Greg. We had great success with all the partners around the world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would be confident to say that for all the partnerships we've created with all the local ISPs around the world, we've had great success. We don't have those troublesome providers, or those ones that deliver a poor internet service.
Mm-hmm.
We've been really out, maybe lucky. But the other aspect of that is the internet delivery, the internet capabilities that are being delivered to all these metro and rural areas. It's really gotten good.
Right.
What we've experienced
Mm-hmm.
is multiple providers now are in almost all of our segmented areas, and which really drives down the cost, and it really gives
Mm-hmm.
us an opportunity to pick the best of breed.
Well, first of all, I'd say you might be lucky, but it also sounds like you did your due diligence, which really counts in the ISP selection process, no doubt, right? And certainly cost isn't necessarily the chief factor one should look at when looking at ISPs.
All right.
But the second thing I would say, and I've gotten this kind of concept from a lot of these kinds of conversations in various venues, is that uh, in many respects, the enterprise market has kind of ridden on the coattails of the growth of the residential eyeballs kind of market, right? So that
Yeah.
when all of us were kicked out of the office, whatever it was, for 15, 16 months ago, we're very lucky that we had all cut the cable cord and gone to Netflix and all of that, right? Because they really had built up those local networks to handle that, and so that can kind of bleed over into having a more robust internet option from these smaller ISPs, or even big MSOs like Comcast, because they had already had to engineer these networks for all of us trying to catch the latest Game of Thrones at
Yeah.
exactly the same time on Sunday night or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it kind of worked out lucky for all of us in that sense, right? So,
Yes, absolutely. I'll give you a little story here. It was interesting, and I'm sure that everybody can somehow relate to this. But when the pandemic came on, right, we all were sent home, and we all probably shrugged our shoulders a little bit and we'll say, "See you back in the office in a couple of weeks," right? We really
right.
probably
Hmm.
didn't take the seriousness of this, but we were talking about at the time sending 15,000 users home to work, and we're a Cisco ASA AnyConnect VPN client,
Hmm.
and or user, and at the time, we were licensed for the occasional work from home person, or we were
Right.
licensed for the occasional third party client that needed to get into our network. We were never licensed to send 15,000 people home and keep the organization running.
Exactly. And those
So,
gateways were way too small for that, right? So yeah.
so
Uh,
we could support 2,500 people,
mhm.
and that filled up really quick. And so we reacted very quickly. We placed our orders with Cisco. to get some larger VPN appliances in, and I think is like everybody else, get in line, right?
Right.
So I thought outside the box here, Greg, and I tell you, it was a game changer for us.
Hmm.
We went back to Cisco and said, "What about virtualizing this whole environment?" And so we
Of course.
literally
Yeah.
we literally built in 2 days a complete virtualized entry point into our environment to support an additional 10,000 people. So now we're up to the capacity to being able to support this, and it was crazy. But the value of virtualization for this environment, and I spoke a little bit about it with our x86 and our our routers and our firewalls at the sites. um, I don't know. I don't know how we would have survived any other way. I mean, we
Yeah.
delivered. We kept the business running. We really didn't skip a heartbeat, and other than not being in and getting our coffee in the office. But I mean, it's changed our whole composure on how we're going to do business
Hmm.
moving forward. So
Yeah.
we're really excited about that. It's an interesting story for everyone, I can imagine.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, obviously, the I first heard the term, zero trust, certainly, several years ago, and then I guess SASE was a few years behind that, but they were all relevant issues before the pandemic, but it has made them absolutely crucial now, right? That, be able to have software that can get downloaded on any device. We've even talked to some, folks who a lot of their workers didn't have laptops. And so you're dealing with someone's home personal, it's BYOD all of a sudden. And to be able to have a software based solution, whether it's actually a VPN or whether it's some kind of, SASE kind of zero trust solution, that I think that's never going to go anywhere. And those who had already thought about it were very happy they had, right? So,
Yep.
yeah.
And we just started our SASE journey a few months back.
Hmm.
We chose Palo Alto and their Prisma product line,
Hmm.
and I tell you again, there's a lot of excitement inside of our network about this solution because it handles exactly what you're talking about, and I'll say some of the woes that we had early on with our VPN solution. But you know, we had 7 entry points into our network. Now we have
Right.
more than 100, right?
Right. Right.
You had to come into America or Germany or China or South Korea. Now you can come into Turkey, France,
Hmm.
Portugal, Canada. It doesn't matter to me because our SASE solution delivers that level of functionality for our users to
Right.
come in and not be under the constraints of everybody clobbering a German VPN entry point. The
Right.
second point
Yes.
about that, the second point benefit about that SASE solution is that we now have full visibility of all of our traffic that's egressing and all of our traffic that's ingressing. And we can all, and
Mm.
then, and like I say, we all see that inside of the data lake that's compiling all this log data. So, we have HTTPS inspection now, SSL inspection. We can crack open that container. We're filtering, for the bad guys and the bad sites. We're doing DLP, data leak prevention. We're doing inline antivirus. But the benefit of this is that not only do we see our endpoints that are egressing out of our factory still, but now we can also see those connections that are coming in. So, like you say, we've gone home and there's the person at home using their home computer. They can now VPN in and we can see their compliancy. We can do
Hmm.
hip checks on their antivirus levels. Are they patched? Things like that. The SASE solution is a must for us to operate moving forward. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It really is
Absolutely.
a cool solution.
As you mentioned that you were using Palo Alto, is that something that you wanted sort of integrated into your SD-WAN? Do you consider those basically just separate services? How did that work out?
Yeah. So there's the way you can set it up. inside of your Palo Alto is you can create a whole bunch of service chain links. So
Hmm.
it's different than the service chaining inside of your virtual environment, but you can hook up a bunch of service connections. And so from an SD-WAN perspective, um, the idea here is you build your IPsec tunnels from your sites to the cloud firewall. So
Hmm.
we're reducing our footprint. We're taking all of our firewalls that are delivered individually at all of our sites, and we're reducing that to a single cloud firewall that's globally
Hmm.
diverse. And
Hmm.
so, and then now when you bring in a true SD-WAN, we're bringing in two little appliances that are working in an HSRP type of fashion for failover,
Right.
but we have those IPsec tunnels, delivered directly from those appliances. So we build that path to Prisma. We build that path to our cloud storage provider. We build that path to Azure, AWS. We're
Hmm.
building those paths directly to those cloud services. Plus, we're getting the value um, of using those links. So we can take advantage of the underlying overlays with the diverse paths. I'm very much warming up to dual internet connectivity. I'm not quite there yet,
Hmm.
but
You're right. Yes. Yeah.
but when we're talking about the benefits of SD-WAN with you're sending two sets of data packets down two separate links, and the assembly of those packets doesn't matter what order they come in or getting assembled correctly at the other end. From an
Hmm.
overlay perspective, God, the benefit is huge. The benefit is really huge.
Absolutely.
And then when you start talking about primary and secondary, fail over, fail back, all that kind of goes away, right? Because you've
Hmm.
got multiple paths that you're able to, I'll say, employ to deliver your
Right.
traffic.
Yeah, that and at a lower cost per bit, one can throw additional bandwidth at the problem as well, right? So,
Right.
so in that sense, let's dig on that a little bit deeper. That having kept MPLS, you mentioned starting out with this sort of hub and spoke model, but you're breaking out internet locally now. But do you still have a lot of apps even on the intranet, or a lot of you were driven by IT in the first place. What I'm getting at is I talked to a lot of folks that are, we got rid of our client server kind of stuff. We got rid of our on-prem data centers, and so nothing really needs to go over the intranet anymore at all. Is that the situation you're getting to?
It's really boiling down to what's really, what I want to say, our secret sauce or
Right. Right.
our bread and butter, whatever term you
Mm-hmm.
want to use. But our on-prem SAP environment. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's something that's hosted internally. That's something we're toying around with, or that team is toying around with, is how do we move this to the cloud. I think
Right.
we still have a number of years before we get to something delivered to the cloud from that.
Mm-hmm.
Our engineering, right? That's where like I say, that's where our meat and potatoes are at, is our engineering systems, and
Right.
we keep that. We want to keep our arms around that, but um,
Mm-hmm.
HPC, high performance computing, all those are pretty aggressively in step moving to the cloud, because I mean it's just like any other opportunity in the cloud, right? We can ramp up faster than we can on prem.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
we can buy time on in HPC versus having to wait in line for the engineer in front of you to get done with their analysis, right? So those are some of the key differentiators for us. And so this is why SD-WAN is so important for us, is
Mm-hmm.
that we need this locomotive in front of all of this to be able to provide these secure paths to these different services, so that our engineers can get out there and
Right.
be developing. We want to develop faster than the competitor, right? So we want to be able to deliver and give them the tools that they're able to deliver on. And
Mm-hmm.
and we're you know we I participate in an innovation team internally, and I keep my ear open. I'm part of that
Hmm.
stewardship. And, when we start talking about one of the things that we're starting to leverage a lot of in our organization is the use of HoloLens. So we really want to be able to take an engineer that sits in our North America data center or North American engineering center and put him on the
Right.
floor in China or put him on the
Right.
floor in India. And
Hmm.
again, there's another foundational element that SD-WAN is going to allow us to do. It's going to allow us to do
Right.
that safely and securely.
Yeah. So to take an upshot out of there, and you can correct me if I get it wrong here, but that unlike some organizations where really everything can be pushed to the cloud sort of in the near term, if you have these sort of proprietary engineering SAP kind of systems, you still don't necessarily need an MPLS based intranet to do that. So it may not be that you're moving all cloud native necessarily, but you can achieve that through SD-WAN anyway.
Yeah, and that's where we want to. We got a pilot site. As you know, this it's not cheap to operate in Brazil. Brazil is a very high
Mm-hmm.
cost telecom delivery location, and so you know we're engaging in a pilot with them to I won't say dump our MPLS connection, but we want to try to leverage the harness
Mm-hmm.
of internet connectivity, lower that cost, and still be able to provide the high level of I don't I can't use the terms class of service, but we want to be able to deliver that overlay
Yeah.
that still delivers the QoS metrics
Right.
and the robust sustainability of being able to deliver it across the internet. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty confident once we get there that we'll be able to do that. Again,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the
yeah,
idea with SD-WAN, right? Is that you don't need class of service because if you can achieve the same QoS, then that's all there is, right? So,
so I'm like I say, I'm not completely there yet. I'm still
mhm.
warming up to it. If there was less intensive, if we were talking about SD-WAN delivering to cloud-hosted applications, the internet wouldn't bother me so much of going just
Right.
with Google Internet or using internet as your overlay. But when you start talking about our business systems,
Hmm.
those factories depend on those consolidated cloud hosted data centers. I mean, our
Right.
North America SAP instance runs factories around the world, and
Hmm.
we have to ensure that those factories remain up and active and running. They depend on us to produce product, and they depend on us to ship product.
Yeah, well, in that sense, it might come down to, like so many things often do in the WAN, the last mile issue of that. If you have an MPLS link with whatever it is, an E1 or an Ethernet last mile connection, and then you already have to greenfield in your local internet breakout, what other opportunity do you have really? If you're talking about something else, it's either another diverse provider greenfield, or maybe putting something crucial like that over a wireless connection is a little bit too far of a reach, right? So,
Yeah, but we do have a factory that's very
hmm.
important to us, and they're very important in relying upon our environment, our SAP environment. They actually have a third level of failover, and that's the LTE.
Hmm.
So we're using LTE as a value added path. And
Hmm.
again, when you start looking about, we had an interesting discussion with an LTE provider, not a T1, a manufacturer, appliance provider. And anyways,
Hmm.
I see LTE and 5G as a very important part of our SD-WAN delivery because not so much to use it as a transport in essence, but that now is giving you your third level. So if, like you said, your MPLS is
Yeah.
down, your internet's down, you've got the road crew down the street that's dug both of them up. You now have an absolute possibility to provide survivability on LTE,
Hmm.
and I really see that as part of our longer term viability because in the SD-WAN world, as you know this, you configure your two circuits, your internet circuit and your MPLS circuit, as your kind of forward error correcting type of packet delivery agents. And then you can set up your LTE environment strictly only to work in a total failover perspective.
Right.
So
Right.
that is hugely beneficial for us. And just to be able to have that comfort for some of our sites, I think, again, we look at ourselves as a business enabler. We look at ourselves as the agent that's going to deliver connectivity to these sites to be able to produce their parts. I mean, our
Hmm.
goal is to get those parts out the back door.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you said sort of long-term development. Thinking in that kind of long-term development, there's also the possibility now of that the race between Elon Musk and Bezos, results in some pretty robust satellite-based, LEO kind of broadband as well. Is that something that you would consider when the time is ripe?
To be honest with you, I'm not convinced on satellite. Um,
Hmm.
at my previous residence years ago, I lived in the cornfield, so
Right. Right.
uh,
Yeah.
I didn't have broadband, believe it or not. I didn't have broadband or the opportunity to have broadband. I did have satellite internet. It's okay,
Hmm.
but the challenges for the uploads is really something that I think is a game changer. If that gets
Hmm.
fixed, everybody's sharing that upload connection, right? And so that really becomes a challenge from a satellite perspective. I look more down the line with at 5G. We're from our innovation vertical, we're doing some things with 5G already. This things like operating our robotic cars that are existent on
Hmm.
our shop floor,
Yeah.
um, doing some inventory management with 5G. What's nice about that is the pure speed and analytics that can be delivered back to really help us deliver um, a better face to the functionality of that particular
Hmm.
process. So I think as 5G continues to come forward in its deployment, it'll be a game changer.
Yeah.
I don't
Absolutely.
know. I think we're still off from being primary, but I certainly think there's going to be some great opportunities in the future. I'll say
Well,
that.
especially in sorry, just real quick, especially in the sense of there's 5G as the transport technology, and then 5G as kind of the campus technology, and being able to unify that in a
Yep,
way that's not really possible with Wi-Fi, right? So.
that's correct. That's correct. Now I'll say, and again, it's funny because SD-WAN opens up so many possibilities, and I guess I could go on for a couple hours about the opportunity that it enables. But our India plants, we all know and have challenges operating in India. Um, y- our India plant, one of our India plants actually gets better performance and connectivity from LTE than
Mm-hmm.
their fiber connection to the facility. So there's lots of challenges in India, and I'm really looking forward to being able to um, try that out in India. If I can, heck, if we can deliver our primary connectivity into India plant via LTE connection, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to give it a
Yeah.
try, and it's very somewhat affordable for them to be able to use. So it's like I say, there's lots of opportunities that the whole SD-WAN world opens right up for different things to try.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to switch gears a little bit now as we start to wrap things up here. We've talked in the past, and I recall you mentioning that in sort of the automotive industry in general, and specifically your history at BorgWarner, there's a lot of M&A activity. What kind of lessons have you learned there, maybe for some other WAN IT infrastructure manager folks out there to look out for in terms of dealing with M&A?
Yeah, so we do a lot of M&A. We just did our largest acquisition. We bought Delphi Technologies, which almost doubled the size of our company.
Oh,
And
wow.
so when we purchased this location, They were currently at the hub and spoke
Mm,
architecture. So they're physical. They do a lot of backhaul of their internet circuits out to the points of concentration. Not a lot of local egress, and we're in the middle of that journey right now, Greg. And I'm excited about it because I know that we'll be able to deliver what they're needing.
right.
I just can't go fast enough, and so
Right. Right.
um, so, the things we're looking at is getting that local egress delivered. We have, gosh, I think we have 30 active orders in place right now for these factories for
Mm,
local egress, and putting them onto the Flexware solution. Um, that being said, we had to join these two large organizations together. And I know that anybody out there in the networking world knows this is a huge feat because that we're all using the 10 address space, and that we're all have duplicate
right.
address space. And we had
Right.
some real conflicts around um, who gets to stay and who has to change. So
Hmm.
I would say you got to look at that. And if you're looking seriously about bringing two big organizations together, one of the benefits of SD-WAN is certainly the overlay and the underlay. Traditional underlay, traditional underlay is not so forgiving of IP addressing.
Absolutely. Right.
Overlay will allow you to have a little bit more flexibility for addressing that. And for us, we acquired them. They had 5 data centers, and so we have 2. And so now you have 7 data centers, and our goal is to collapse everything back into 2. And we don't know where that's
Right.
going to be. We don't know where that's going to be yet. But my vision is that we operate on some fabric that gives us an opportunity to um, have a better relationship with our cloud provider, have a better competitive relationship amongst choosing which cloud provider we do business with, as well as
Hmm.
providing that robust where we're not having to build anything out of our data centers. We actually can couple that technology on the fabric's backbone and be able to
Hmm.
deliver
Yep.
a more seamless, consolidated look and feel, and we can leverage that backbone for data transfer and connectivity needs amongst the regions. We know that
Hmm.
we've got, with the Prisma offering, we've got some service level agreements that's delivered of that offering from Microsoft Office 365, right? So we've got, EMEA in North America, we've got a 35 millisecond service level agreement from that firewall into the Microsoft environment. That's huge for us.
Right.
We're very
Yeah.
Microsoft centric. We run Office 365. We're very Teams heavy oriented. We're doing all of our collaboration, our conferencing, all of the bells and whistles. If you can embrace it, that you can use in Teams, as well as running Teams voice. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's mergers and acquisitions are a challenge, and I would just say, don't be short-sighted. Think outside of the box. Think about how you can bring these two organizations together faster and quicker. And I think that, like say, with our SASE offering with Prisma, we're not deploying firewalls to 30 locations. We have a firewall. We're building IPsec tunnels to
Right.
this firewall. That's the work that's
Hmm.
being done. So, like I say, it's pretty exciting for us to be able to do this. I'm pretty proud of my team to be nimble, to be quick, to think out of the box, and to be able to attack these technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, just to drive home that point you've been sort of hitting the whole time, which is that the virtualized network is so much easier to expand, change, and adapt, right? So,
Oh, absolutely. And even like when you think of simple things, Greg, about how do I get my computer patched, right? So
hmm.
traditionally, we're inside our corporate networks, and our patching takes place there, because when we're at home, we don't allow split tunneling just for security
Hmm.
purposes. And
Hmm.
so, oh God, can you imagine everybody getting patched over a VPN connection? Well, Prisma, from a VPN perspective, allows us to steer some of that traffic. So, as opposed to bringing all of that traffic inside your 4 corporate walls and then hairpinning it around to go get it to patching or whatever, you can actually set up the policies in your SASE offering to say, hey, don't bring that traffic inside the 4 walls, bring it through the firewall, keep it secure, keep it safe, but keep your patching on the outside, not on the inside. So, I think that's really important when you start thinking about a VPN or a SASE offering. I mean, think hard and deep about really what these cloud-based offerings can do for your organization, and then you snap on top of that an SD-WAN
Mm-hmm.
offering, and you know your mergers and acquisitions will come faster and quicker. I think I was on a call yesterday where I was listening about an organization that was delivering 350 SD-WAN sites a week. I don't know
Oh,
what,
wow. Yeah.
but the idea
Yeah.
is right. With that offering, you can, I kind of summarize it like this: you pre-launch or configure that device, you send it out to the site, you plug it in, it phones home, gets its configuration, builds the
Right.
tunnel, and you're up and running. That
Yeah.
now compare that how you deploy a firewall or a physical firewall or a physical
Yeah.
router. There's a lot
Yeah.
more work involved, and the orchestration is
Absolutely.
unbelievable. And I think that I'm looking forward to the days where it's not always the WAN's fault, because everything's always blamed on the WAN. It's
Yes,
the WAN, it's the
exactly.
WAN, it's the WAN.
Yeah.
And you know what? We now have visibility, layer 7 visibility into this traffic, and we can say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what is this traffic? No, it's not the WAN's fault. It's Joe Smith over here. He's
Right.
locked into a YouTube video for the last 7 hours or whatever it might
Right.
be, right? But we can build
Right.
the orchestration is really cool because you can build all those policies around that orchestration to control how your network behaves.
So it got to be in the email signature that you have. It's not the network, right? So,
Yeah, it's not the network,
uh,
right? Yeah. Myself and my our global SAP basis leader, him and I always go back and forth
yeah.
about that. In joke,
Absolutely. I
in
bet.
joke, it's all fun, but
Of
he,
course. Yeah.
I always blame SAP. He always blames the network. So
Excellent. Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you so much. This was a really great review. I think there's a lot of little nuggets here. It might be one that some people need to go back and even listen to a couple of times. So thank you so much for joining us. Before I let you go, I always like to ask folks, now that the world, we're, especially in the U.S., we're maybe a bit ahead of some places in the world in that sense, are starting to open back up. What has you most excited to get back out into the real life again?
Um, I'm a social person. Sitting here
Mm,
in my home office all day long is, I don't know how I've been able to tolerate it this long, but
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to less conference calls on video and
Hmm.
more in-room collaboration, whiteboarding, those types of things. I think that's where we get now. I don't know about my dog. I think my dog's going to need some therapy, unless we have
Yes.
a policy change where I can take my dog to work with me. But I think our pets around the world are going to be the ones that suffer the most from this change coming up.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, there is going to be a WAN summit in New York in August, so hopefully I might
Okay,
see you there. So
yeah,
yeah,
that'd be great. Yeah,
excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us, and I look forward to maybe checking in again sometime.
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much for having me, Greg.
All right, cheers. Thanks very much for listening. The WAN Manager podcast is brought to you by TeleGeography, a division of Primetrica Incorporated, and is edited and produced by Jane Miller. I wrote the theme song you're listening to right now, and we get administrative canine support from my dog Honeybun, who you might hear chiming in from time to time when the mood strikes her. If you want to learn more about our data, head over to telegeography.com, where you can find our blog that covers many of the topics we hit here, and you can sign up for our WAN Manager newsletter. Until next time, have a great day. So guess what, folks? We got some big news at TeleGeography, and that is that we just launched our WAN forum. What is a WAN forum? Well, this is a content hub and community for anyone involved in the management of a WAN or in IT infrastructure for mid to large enterprises. And it's got all the analysis and content that you enjoy from TeleGeography related to the WAN, plus some extra videos, some interviews, and some special tools that we've designed just for inclusion here, like our SD-WAN vendor selector, a high-level WAN cost calculator to give you some ideas of what market prices are. Basically, if you like the kind of stuff that we talk about on this podcast, and you're an end user, we think that you'll enjoy the WAN forum. And of course, this is a space meant to be shared, which is why a WAN forum subscription includes access for up to 20 members of your team. So check it out by heading to wanforum.com. We'll be adding some new tools, constantly adding new analysis, and announcing some upcoming WAN forum events very soon. So you want to make sure you bookmark that. That's wanforum.com. We can't wait to see you there and for you to dive in.